Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we open the door on one of the strangest hotel deaths in American history. Who was the man in room 1046, and why did he die with no answers and no real name? Imagine stepping back into Kansas City, 1935. It's the heart of the Depression era, but, the city is buzzing. It's a vibrant hub of jazz, business, and, well, for some, definitely some illicit activity.
Oh, absolutely. A real pressure cooker of a time and place.
Exactly. And right in the middle of it all, inside the grand, seemingly solid walls of the hotel president, a horrifying discovery is made. A man is found just brutally beaten, tied up, stabbed.
And the room. Locked from the inside.
Locked from the inside. Nothing stolen, no obvious suspect, and the most critical, really baffling detail, the man checked in under a completely false identity.
Yeah, Roland T. Owen.
Roland T. Owen. This is the enduring enigma of this case. It's stumped investigators for decades, baffled forensic experts, and honestly, it continues to absolutely captivate this global online community.
It really does. It's one of those cases that just sticks with you.
So what's our mission today with this deep dive into the sources? We really want to try and unravel the bizarre, almost, cinematic sequence of events leading up to this man's death.
Right. We need to ask the core questions.
Who truly was Roland T. Owen? And what on earth was the significance of this mysterious Don he whispered about just before he died?
That name. Don. It just hangs over everything.
It really does. And look, this isn't just some dusty old historical mystery buried in the archives. It's a living puzzle. It's constantly being re-examined, theorized about all across the internet. You see this blend of old cold case files and this relentless modern digital sleuthing.
Yeah, the web sleuths are all over this one.
They are. So get ready, because honestly, the more you learn about this case, the more questions just seem to pop up.
It definitely gets under your skin.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's do a deep dive into the actual timeline, because to really grasp the gravity, the sheer strangeness of this whole thing, you have to kind of immerse yourself in the atmosphere of Depression-era Kansas City.
Yeah, context is key here.
Right. This wasn't some, quiet little town. Kansas City in 35 was bustling, sometimes pretty rough and tumble. It was largely under the political machine of Tom Pendergast.
Which definitely brought with it a certain, let's say, undercurrent of activity. Shady dealings were pretty common.
Exactly. And the stage for our story is the hotel president. Now, this wasn't some rundown motel on the edge of town. Far from it.
No. It was a grand place. Luxurious, really. A beacon of activity.
A place where people stayed for serious business, for, lavish pleasure, and maybe, just maybe, for secrets.
Which makes what happened inside room 1046 all the more shocking, doesn't it? Happening in such a public, upscale place.
It really does. So our story kicks off precisely on January 2nd, 1935. That afternoon, a man walks into the hotel president, goes to the desk, checks into room 1046.
And he gives the name Roland T. Owen. Says he's from Los Angeles.
Right. But from the second he walked through those grand lobby doors, there were these peculiar characteristics that the hotel staff picked up on almost immediately.
Yeah, the clerk apparently described him as, well-groomed, meticulously dressed in a dark overcoat, almost sort of impeccably neat, but noticeably anxious. There was this strange tension about him in his posture.
And his luggage. This is where it gets really, really odd right from the start.
Minimal is an understatement, isn't it?
Here.
He arrived with basically nothing, just a comb, a toothbrush, and a tube of toothpaste.
That's it, tucked away in his coat pocket.
Apparently so. No bags, no suitcase, nothing else.
Wow. It almost gives you the sense he intended to leave just as swiftly and discreetly as he arrived, Like he wanted to leave absolutely no trace behind.
Or maybe he was expecting luggage to arrive later, or someone was bringing it. It's hard to say.
That's true. He also made a specific request, which seemed a bit unusual. He wanted a room facing an interior courtyard, away from the street noise.
Valuing privacy, maybe? Or perhaps trying to avoid being seen from the street level. Could be either.
Could be. So he gets the room 1046.
And what's truly fascinating here, if you look closely at the source material, the police reports and staff interviews, is how quickly the hotel staff, particularly the maid, Mary Soptic, picked up on his strange behavior.
It wasn't just the lack of luggage then.
No, not at all. From her very first encounter, which was around 4 p.m. on that first day, January 2nd, when she went to clean his room, things were already weird.
How so?
She found the room dimly lit, just one single lamp on, casting these long shadows everywhere. Owen himself was fully dressed, just lying there on the bed.
Okay, a bit odd, but maybe he was just resting.
Perhaps. But then he made this unusual, though apparently quite polite, request. He asked her to leave the door unlocked when she left.
Unlocked in a hotel.
Yeah. He explained he was expecting a friend. Now, okay, maybe that doesn't seem too out of the ordinary on its own, but
there's more.
there's more. She noticed something else while she was in there. A note left on the desk.
A note. What did it say?
Simple. Almost chilling, in retrospect. It just read, Dawn. I will be back in 15 minutes. Wait.
Dawn. There's that name again, right at the start.
Exactly. This simple note instantly creates this sense of intrigue, doesn't it? Who was Dawn? And why was Owen apparently so anxious about this person's arrival that he'd leave his hotel door unlocked, foregoing even basic security?
Yeah, that seems incredibly risky.
This note, seemingly pretty innocuous at first glance, becomes one of the few just tantalizingly ambiguous clues in this whole baffling case. It immediately suggests a prearranged meeting, maybe even a clandestine one.
And the strangeness, as you dig into the reports, it didn't just stop there on day one, did it?
Not even close. In fact, it escalated pretty dramatically over the next 2 days, turning this sort of quirky, anxious guest into the center of an absolute nightmare.
So what happened on January 3rd?
Well, on the morning of January 3rd, the maid, Mary Sopik, she goes back to clean the room again. Routine stuff.
Okay.
This time, though, the door was locked from the outside, like double locked, requiring her key.
So he changed his mind about leaving it unlocked.
Apparently. Or maybe the friend had arrived.
Yeah.
Anyway, she knocked, and Owen let her in. Nothing overtly unusual there, perhaps, though it definitely contradicted his earlier request.
Maybe his situation had changed somehow.
Could be. But then later that same day, things got even stranger. Mary came back, maybe mid-afternoon, just to drop off some fresh towels. Again, the door was locked. Firmly locked from the inside this time, it seems. She knocked, but this time, no direct answer from Owen.
Okay.
Instead, she distinctly heard voices coming from inside the room.
Voices. Plural.
Yes. Not just one voice, but two. She clearly heard a man's voice, talking loudly. Sounded like he was engaged in a pretty intense discussion, maybe even an argument.
An argument. Okay. And the second voice.
And crucially, she also distinctly heard a woman's voice from inside the room, seemingly participating in whatever conversation or argument was happening.
A woman's voice. Wow. Okay. That's significant.
Hugely significant. She called that again, housekeeping, fresh towels, something like that. But there was no reply. So she just left the towels outside the door.
And then what?
And then, as she turned to leave, a hand she couldn't see who it belonged to, just a hand reached out quickly from inside the room and snatched the towels inside.
Wow. Just a hand, unseen.
Exactly. This observation, the fact that other people were clearly in the room, particularly a woman, that would later fuel so many theories about Owen's identity and what really happened to him.
It raises immediate, chilling questions, doesn't it? Who were these people? Why was Roland T. Owen having loud, possibly contentious conversations in a hotel room?
It certainly implied he was far from alone during that period, and that something was definitely amiss, something quite serious brewing behind that locked door.
Okay, so that takes us to January 4th, the day of the discovery.
Right. The dramatic and frankly truly horrifying discovery of the man calling himself Roland T. Owen came on the morning of January 4th. And the chain of events leading up to it is itself just fraught with missed opportunities and these really unsettling details.
What happened first?
Well, the hotel switchboard operator had noticed something odd. The phone in room 1046 had been off the hook for hours.
Which back then wasn't just an annoyance, right?
No, it often signified a real problem. Maybe a guest in distress, or maybe even a deliberate attempt to block incoming calls to ensure privacy or avoid contact.
So they sent someone to check.
Yes, a bellboy was sent up to investigate. He knocked on the door. A man's voice from inside, presumably Owen or someone else, just mumbled something like, "Come in, turn on the lights."
And did the bellboy go in?
No. He apparently assumed the guest was maybe just drunk or disoriented from a late night. He didn't try the door, didn't enter the room, and simply left.
Oh, wow. That's tough to hear in retrospect.
It is. It's a detail that investigators, And certainly web sleuths have scrutinized relentlessly, wondering if more immediate intervention right then could have changed the outcome. But, hindsight.
Hindsight, yeah. So the real horror was uncovered later that morning.
Later that morning, yes. Around 8:30 a.m., another bellboy, a young man named Harold Pike, was sent up to the room. This time, he had explicit instructions to enter, and he had a master key.
Okay.
He unlocked the door, pushed it open, and stepped inside. And the scene he discovered, it was beyond comprehension, something that would undoubtedly haunt him and really the entire city for years.
What did he see?
The room was dark, blinds drawn tight. But in the dim light filtering in, he could make out a figure on the bed. A naked man covered in blood, severely bruised.
Oh my God.
His head was clutched in his hands like he was in agony, and his wrists, his ankles, even his neck were tightly bound with this thin cord, almost like clothesline.
Bound, tied up.
Tightly bound. He was clearly in immense distress, groaning softly. Pike, understandably horrified, just backed out and immediately called for help. The hotel doctor, the police, they arrived very quickly.
To a scene of just unimaginable brutality, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
And what did they find once they could, get the lights on and assess the situation, the full extent of the injuries?
It was truly savage. Owen, or the man they knew as Owen, had been viciously beaten over his entire body. Multiple stab wounds, too.
Stab wounds as well.
Yes. His skull was fractured, a devastating blow, likely the cause of death eventually. His lung was punctured by one of the stab wounds, and as mentioned, his wrists, ankles, and neck were tightly bound with that cord.
The room itself must have been
A scene of utter chaos and violence. Blood was spattered everywhere, on the walls, the furniture, the bedding. It clearly indicated a violent, probably prolonged struggle.
Yet somehow, incredibly, he was still alive.
Almost miraculously, yes. Despite these horrific, clearly life-threatening injuries, he was still clinging to life when the police arrived. Barely conscious, fading in and out, but technically alive.
That is astonishing.
It's one of the most crucial and, frankly, most baffling details of this entire case, the fact that he was still alive.
So did the police try to talk to him, get any information?
They did. A detective, obviously desperate to get an ID or a lead on the attacker, leaned in close to the semi-conscious man and asked him, point blank, "Who did this to you?"
And what did he say?
He whispered one word. Nobody.
Nobody.
Then, when the detective pressed, asked what happened, he mumbled something about falling against the bathtub.
Falling against the bathtub with those injuries, bound like that.
Exactly. This denial in the face of such obvious extreme violence, it's just one of the most paradoxical and psychologically compelling parts of this entire story.
Why would he do that? Why protect whoever did this? Or why deny it happened?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Was it immense fear? Fear of retaliation against him, maybe against family he had somewhere. Was he protecting someone, the woman heard in the room, maybe? Or was there some kind of deep-seated code of silence, maybe related to those mom theories that transcended even his will to survive?
Or maybe just delirium from the injuries.
That's possible too, of course. Profound shock. But the consistency of the denial, nobody. I fell. It feels like more than just confusion to many people.
And he didn't last long after that.
No. He was rushed to the hospital, but he died shortly after midnight on January 5th, succumbed to those horrific injuries. And he took his secrets and the identity of his assailant, or assailants, with him to the grave.
Leaving the police with basically nothing to go on.
Pretty much. The investigation immediately hit these critical roadblocks. They quickly discovered Roland T. Owen was definitely not his real name.
No ID on him. Wallet, papers.
Absolutely nothing. No identification, no traceable background to this mysterious man. It was like he had just materialized out of thin air. A complete ghost.
So what could they even do?
They did what they could back then. They took photographs of him, post-mortem unfortunately, and circulated them to national newspapers all across the country. It was a desperate attempt to put a face to the mystery, hoping anyone might recognize him.
A real needle in a haystack situation, especially in 1935.
Exactly. No internet, no national fingerprint databases readily accessible, no easy way to cross-reference information across state lines quickly. It was painstaking, slow, and often fruitless work.
And did it ever pay off? Did they find out who he was?
Eventually, yes. But it took an incredibly long time. And that's where the story takes another strange and frankly heartbreaking turn. It really highlights that anonymity that was possible back then.
How long did it take?
A year and a half. A full 18 months the police were struggling with this John Doe case. But then, in September 1936, his mother, a woman named Ruby Ogletree from Birmingham, Alabama, saw his picture in a magazine or newspaper.
And she recognized him.
She did. She recognized a distinctive, faint scar on his head from a childhood injury, a detail only a mother would likely know.
So his real name wasn't Roland T. Owen.
No. His real name was Artemis Ogletree. And get this, he was just 17 years old when he left home in Birmingham back in 1934.
17, just a kid.
Just a kid. Apparently, he left home intending to hitchhike across the country to California. Just a young man, barely an adult, chasing adventure.
And he ends up brutally murdered in a Kansas City hotel room under a false name. The contrast is just stark, tragic.
Incredibly tragic. But then, somehow, it gets even stranger.
How could it possibly get stranger?
After Artemis's death was confirmed, and the news presumably reached his mother, Ruby Ogletree received 3 typewritten letters.
Letters? From who?
Supposedly from her son, Artemis. And crucially, they were postmarked from Kansas City after he had already died.
Wait, what? Letters sent after his death?
Yes. And these letters also mentioned a man named Don.
The same Don from the note in the hotel room.
The very same name. And then, just as abruptly as they started arriving, the letters stopped.
That is deeply unsettling. Who on earth would send those letters?
Exactly. That detail is incredibly strange, you have to admit. And it fuels so much of the ongoing speculation. Was it the killer or killers? Trying to mislead investigators, maybe cruelly taunt the family, make them think Artemis was still alive and just hadn't made contact for some reason.
Or maybe it was Don, or someone connected to him trying to tie up loose ends, control the narrative somehow.
It's possible. The implications are just chilling, though. It means someone was actively manipulating the story after Artemis Ogletree's death, trying to give this false impression that he was still alive, or at least still communicating, even while his body was lying unidentified in a morgue for months.
That suggests such a calculated, cold-blooded effort to sow confusion. It's beyond just murder.
It really is. It suggests someone is trying to actively manage the aftermath.
And the physical clues left behind, did they offer any more answers?
Frustratingly few. And they almost add to the bewilderment, like deliberate taunts. All of Owen's or Artemis's clothing and personal belongings, everything beyond that initial comb, brush, and toothpaste he arrived with, gone.
Completely vanished.
Completely vanished. Which again points to a deliberate effort to remove any identifying information, to erase him.
But some things were left behind.
A few tantalizing items. A necktie label may be torn off during the struggle. A single hairpin suggesting the presence of that woman. An unsmoked cigarette. And a drinking glass, crucially, which had fingerprints on it, including prints identified as belonging to a woman.
A woman's fingerprints, did they ever match them?
They were carefully collected, documented, but agonizingly never matched anyone in the criminal databases of the time, or to anyone connected to the case later.
So close, yet so far.
Exactly. These scanned items, the tie label, the hairpin, the cigarette, the glass with the unmatched prints, they became the focal points for later investigations, and much, much later, for all the internet sleuth trying to piece together this truly bewildering narrative.
Okay, so let's pivot there, because this is where the case gets really interesting in a modern context. Moving from those dusty archives to, well, our screens today.
Right. This historical mystery, rooted so deep in the 1930s, it's found this entirely new life, a massive new audience in the digital age.
It's amazing how that happens, isn't it? It's no longer just buried in old police files or forgotten newspaper clippings.
Not at all. The Roland T. Owen case, or the Room 1046 mystery, as many call it online, it's extensively discussed, dissected, debated on platforms like Reddit. There are dedicated subreddits just for this case.
And YouTube channels, right? I've seen quite a few videos on it.
Oh, countless true crime YouTube channels feature it, some with millions of subscribers. You even see, like, noir-style TikToks breaking down the weird details.
Wow, TikToks, too. That's something.
It shows the reach. This online revival has really breathed fresh oxygen into this very cold case. It generates new theories, encourages this kind of collective brainstorming, and honestly, it keeps the memory of Artemis Ogletree and the huge questions around his death very much alive.
It's a real testament to that enduring human fascination with unsolved puzzles, isn't it?
Absolutely. We just want answers.
So what are some of the main theories floating around online? What are the web sleuths saying?
Well, the theories born from this modern online obsession are incredibly varied, often really meticulously detailed, as you'd expect from such a dedicated community.
I bet. What's the most prominent one?
Probably the one centered around mob involvement or maybe a blackmail scheme gone wrong. This one gets discussed heavily on Reddit forums, true crime podcasts, you name it.
And the reasoning behind that?
It's pretty compelling when you consider the context. Kansas City in the 30s, the Pendergast machine, notorious for organized crime.
Right, the backdrop fits.
Exactly. And the hallmarks are there, aren't they? The use of aliases, Roland T. Owen, the cryptic communication, that note to Don, the weird phone calls the operator overheard where Owen apparently said something like, "Don, I don't want to eat, I'm not hungry."
Yeah, that sounds like coded language almost.
It does. It suggests clandestine dealings, a deliberate attempt to hide his true identity from, well, legitimate authorities or maybe even rival factions.
And the violence itself?
The sheer brutality, the almost torturous nature of the injuries, the tight binding with cord, the severe beating, the multiple stab wounds, it strongly suggests a professional mob-style execution. Or maybe an interrogation that went horribly, horribly wrong.
It doesn't sound like a random frenzied attack.
Not really. It feels calculated. And within this theory, Don isn't necessarily just a first name. Maybe it's a title within a crime syndicate. Or a key contact, an enforcer. Maybe even a rival boss he was supposed to meet.
Okay, that makes sense. And the argument the maid heard?
Could easily have been an argument over a failed blackmail scheme, maybe a debt collection gone bad, some kind of illicit dealings that went sour. The possibilities within that framework are numerous.
And how does this theory explain his final words? Nobody.
Well, that's often interpreted as pure fear. A fear-induced refusal to talk. Maybe he was protecting himself, or more likely protecting his family back home from further retaliation by some powerful, vengeful organization. You don't snitch.
Even on your deathbed.
Even then, that code of silence runs deep. Plus, the meticulous disappearance of all his clothes and belongings that points to a professional job, too. A deliberate attempt to erase his identity completely, leave no traceable links.
And the letters, the typewritten letters to his mother.
Ah, yes. Many online theorists see those as just a cruel hoax, or maybe a deliberate attempt by the killers to mislead investigators, throw them off the scent, make them think he was still alive and traveling, or maybe even just taunting the family.
Which suggests a really cold, cruel mind at work.
Deeply unsettling, yeah. Calculated and cold.
Okay, so mob involvement is a big one. What else is out there?
Another significant theory, one that also kind of fits the secrecy aspect, is that Owen was involved in espionage or was living some kind of complex double life.
Espionage, like spies and stuff. In 1935 Kansas City.
Well, maybe not James Bond style, but consider the times. Rising tensions in Europe, pre-WWII, or maybe not government espionage, but industrial espionage, or perhaps just involved in other secret, illicit activities, high-stakes gambling rings, maybe remnants of bootlegging networks, things that required aliases and secrecy.
Okay, I see. So Roland T. Owen was just a cover.
Exactly. A carefully constructed cover for a deliberate attempt to start a new life, vanish into anonymity. But his past, whatever it was, eventually caught up to him there in the hotel president.
And Don in the scoop.
Don could represent this new secret life. Maybe a handler, a key figure in his hidden world, a contact point for whatever covert operations he was involved in. The whole crime, then, stems directly from the secrets he was trying so desperately to keep.
The need for a false identity, the interior room, the minimal luggage.
It all aligns pretty neatly with someone trying to disappear or operate covertly, right? Moving without leaving a big trail.
And his silence at the end.
Again, fits perfectly. A code of secrecy, maintained even unto death, protecting the operation or the secret, whatever it was.
Interesting. So we have mobs, maybe spies or secret lives. What about something more personal?
Absolutely. Shifting away from those grander, more conspiratorial theories, some of the most compelling lines of thought, especially given the few intimate clues left behind, center on a lover's quarrel gone horribly wrong.
Ah, okay. Based on the woman's voice.
Exactly. Remember, the maid, Mary Softic, distinctly heard a woman's voice coming from inside room 1046 on January 3rd, the day before the discovery.
And the hairpin found at the scene.
The hairpin, yes. And those distinct woman's fingerprints found on the drinking glass in the room. These details together strongly suggest a woman was indeed present, possibly during or immediately before the attack, or at the very least, was intimately involved in Owen's Artemis's life at that moment.
So in this theory, who is Dawn?
Well, Dawn could be the name of a female lover, maybe Donna, or perhaps Don was a male lover, or even a rival in some kind of intense personal romantic triangle. The loud argument the maid overheard could easily have been a jealous confrontation that just spiraled tragically out of control, leading to an act of extreme violence.
And the brutality. Does that fit a crime of passion?
It certainly can. Crimes of passion, fueled by intense emotion like jealousy or rage, can be incredibly violent, sometimes even more so than a calculated hit. The binding might seem odd, but maybe it was about control in that moment or prolonging the suffering.
And his last words, nobody, in this context,
Could be interpreted very differently here. Maybe he was desperately protecting a forbidden lover, shielding them from the consequences, or trying to deflect attention from a relationship he desperately wanted to keep secret, maybe due to the era's social norms or other personal complications.
It paints a picture of a much more intimate, maybe desperate crime.
Exactly. Less cold efficiency, more raw, messy emotion. And this ties into another crucial piece, doesn't it?
The funeral.
Yes. Weeks after his death, after he remained unidentified for so long, someone anonymously paid for his burial, and they sent flowers with a cryptic, poignant note.
What did the note say again?
Love forever, Louise.
Louise, not Dawn.
Louise. So who was Louise? Was she the woman whose voice was heard? Was she the secret lover, a sister he was estranged from, someone else entirely tied into this emotional drama? The mystery of Louise just adds another complex and frankly quite romanticized layer to this whole theory.
Wow. Okay, so mob, secrets, love triangle.
Yeah.
Are there any other, maybe less common theories?
Well, there is one that gets explored, particularly in some of the more fringe online discussions. It's intriguing, though admittedly pretty chilling and maybe far-fetched for some.
Which is?
The idea of suicide made to look like murder.
Really? With those injuries, being tied up like that?
It's difficult to reconcile, I agree. The theory suggests Owen somehow inflicted the wounds himself, or more plausibly, arranged for them to be inflicted by an accomplice, intentionally leaving cryptic instructions or clues, maybe the note to Dawn, maybe his last words, all designed to create this elaborate mystery for reasons we can only guess at. Maybe revenge, maybe just a desire for notoriety.
How would that even work? The binding seems impossible to do to yourself.
Right. The sheer brutality, and especially the intricate method of restraint wrists, ankles, and neck bound tightly makes a purely self-inflicted scenario incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to imagine. It almost certainly requires a conspirator.
Which brings us right back to external involvement anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the fact that such a theory even gets discussed, debated online, I think it's just a testament to the utterly perplexing nature of this case. It shows how desperate people are for any definitive answer, any narrative that can somehow explain the inexplicable.
That makes sense. People need closure, even if the explanation seems wild.
Precisely.
And what's truly remarkable, shifting back to the present, is just the tireless dedication you see from this community of web sleuths, these true crime enthusiasts. They continue to pore over every single tiny detail of this case decades and decades later.
Oh, the level of detail they go into is incredible.
Like, there's intense speculation about the identity of Louise, right? That figure who anonymously paid for the funeral and left that haunting note and flowers. Love forever, Louise.
Endlessly debated. Was she the woman whose voice was heard? Was she the fingerprint donor? Was she a secret lover, a relative? Maybe someone entirely unconnected who just felt sympathy. Her identity, her role remains a complete unknown.
And the symbolic nature of the flowers, the note, it just fuels endless discussion and theorizing online.
It really does. And then, of course, there's the perennial fascination with the locked room puzzle aspect.
Yeah, the classic mystery trope. How did that happen?
How could a man be so brutally murdered in a room locked from the inside, with the windows apparently shut and secured, without any signs of forced entry? It's the kind of seemingly impossible crime that just continues to captivate anyone who loves a good intellectual puzzle.
It keeps the Roland T. Owen case firmly in that realm of active, albeit unofficial, investigation, doesn't it?
Absolutely. People are still trying to crack it.
So let's try to connect some of these threads. What makes this case so uniquely captivating, even beyond the locked room element?
I think connecting it to the bigger picture, the Roland T. Owen case is so enduringly fascinating precisely because of its core inconsistencies and these profound, almost philosophical paradoxes.
Like his last words.
Exactly. Let's start right there.
Hmm.
The paradox of his last words. Why, truly, would a brutally tortured man, literally on his deathbed, refuse to name his attacker? It fundamentally challenges our basic assumptions about human behavior, our instinct for self-preservation, our desire for justice.
It just doesn't compute, does it?
Not easily. Was he genuinely terrified of further repercussions? For his family back in Alabama, maybe? For himself, even from beyond the grave, believing silence was the only shield?
Or was he protecting someone? The woman, Louise, Dawn, someone crucial to whatever secret life he might have been living, protecting them out of some twisted loyalty, or maybe fear of even deeper consequences if he talked.
Or, as we touched on, was he simply delirious? In profound shock from the head trauma, the blood loss, and genuinely believe he somehow just fell against the bathtub, despite the overwhelming violent evidence.
The psychological weight of that denial, it's immense. It really lies at the very heart of the enigma, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests this incredible level of control, or perhaps terror, a code of silence that seems to transcend mere pain and approaches something like profound personal sacrifice, or just paralyzing fear.
And then there's Dawn.
Ah, yes, the Dawn connection. It remains arguably the most tantalizing clue, yet it's so frustratingly vague. This single name just echoes throughout the entire narrative.
The note, the alleged phone call, the letters to his mother.
Exactly. Was Dawn the killer? Was he an accomplice? Was he another victim caught up in whatever was going on, a confidant, a friend? Or maybe Dawn wasn't even a person. Maybe it was a code name for something or figure of speech.
The original sources, the police files, they don't give us a definitive answer, do they?
Not at all. Which just allows for this boundless, intriguing speculation.
Yeah.
And you even get these weird, probably coincidental connections popping up over the years.
Like what?
Well, there's this eerie, though almost certainly unrelated connection people sometimes draw to a different gruesome slaying that happened in Kansas City years later, involving a man actually named Don Kelso.
Really? Is there any actual link?
No official link whatsoever beyond the shared first name and the location. But it's precisely those kinds of coincidental details, those little echoes, that fuel the ongoing speculation and fascination online. It draws people deeper into the rabbit hole of Kansas City's darker history.
It makes you wonder if there's some larger pattern, even if it's just our minds trying to connect the dots.
Exactly. Our innate desire to find patterns even where none might exist.
And for me personally, the chilling mystery of those typewritten letters sent to his mother, that's another thread that just absolutely keeps me thinking.
It's deeply disturbing, isn't it?
Who would do that? Send letters, supposedly from a dead man, typed, postmarked from Kansas City after he died. And why? What could possibly be the motive?
Was the killer trying to manipulate the investigation, create confusion, throw the police off by making it seem Artemis was still alive and traveling, buy themselves time?
Oh, maybe it was Dawn. Or Louise. Or some other involved party trying to tie up loose ends, send some kind of final twisted message, or create a false narrative that benefited them somehow.
It suggests such a level of calculation and a deeply sinister intent that goes way beyond just the act of murder itself.
It implies a deliberate, cold attempt to mislead, maybe even taunt the family and the authorities. It adds this layer of psychological complexity that's truly unsettling.
Yeah, it indicates someone was very aware of the ongoing investigation and was actively trying to derail it. Very chilling.
And we absolutely have to talk more about the locked room puzzle and the setting itself, because that contributes so much to the enduring mystery.
Definitely. How could such a brutal, prolonged act occur in a busy public place like the hotel president without more people hearing or seeing something concrete, especially given the maid heard that loud, angry argument?
You'd think someone else would have noticed something was wrong.
You would. And perhaps even more puzzling, how could the door be locked securely from the inside after such a violent struggle, especially if an attacker or multiple attackers had to leave the room?
That's the core of the puzzle, isn't it?
It is. This scenario points to a few possibilities, none of them simple. Either an incredibly quiet, Meticulous, calculated killer who somehow managed to lock the door from the outside in a way that looked like it was locked from the inside, maybe manipulating the latch.
Yeah.
Or perhaps they never left through the door.
Or maybe they had help. Complicity from someone. Or the timeline is wrong?
Or perhaps the victim himself locked the door after the attack in a final act, though that seems unlikely given his condition. The lack of forced entry and that internal locking mechanism remain these primary points of contention and mystery for investigators back then and for amateur sleuths today. It just defies easy explanation.
And we also have to really keep in mind the implications of the era, right? This happened in 1935.
Absolutely crucial. Pre-digital anonymity played an enormous role here, both in the crime itself and certainly in the investigation.
Think about it for a second. No DNA evidence as we know it. Modern forensics were in their infancy.
Right. And no national network database for fingerprints. You couldn't just run a print and check it against millions of records nationwide in minutes. Each city effectively had its own local fingerprint archive.
So if Roland T. Owen's Artemis's fingerprints weren't already on file in Kansas City for some prior offense, identifying him that way was almost impossible unless you had a suspect in hand to compare them against.
Exactly. Ballistics analysis was rudimentary too, relying heavily on matching unique markings on a bullet to a specific gun, but without the murder weapon, or even knowing what kind of weapon was used for the stabbing, it was a dead end.
It really was a pre-forensic frontier in many ways. A killer could literally just disappear into the crowd, leaving minimal physical traces that investigators could effectively use with the tools they had.
Crime solving was just different. It relied so much on shoe leather, painstaking interviews, community knowledge, and honestly, the sheer luck of someone recognizing a newspaper photo, like his mother eventually did.
It really highlights how vulnerable investigations were to individuals who simply wanted to vanish or who were killed under false pretenses.
It does. Anonymity was much easier to achieve back then.
Which brings us back to the case's enduring power today. Why has this specific historical mystery continued to obsess people online? Why this powerful revival on true crime channels and Reddit forums?
I think it's more than just a passing interest in the macabre. It's really a testament to that deep-seated human fascination with unsolved puzzles and that innate, almost primal desire we have for justice, even decades after the fact.
We want things to make sense. We want closure.
Exactly. There's a fundamental urge to understand, to bring closure to a violent, unexplained death, to connect those tangled threads that just seem to defy logic. And even though Artemis Ogletree was eventually identified by his mother, the deeper mystery, the why he died, and the who was truly responsible for his horrific end that remains stubbornly, frustratingly unanswered.
And people are still actively trying to find answers using modern techniques.
Well, it's worth noting that modern researchers, people involved in things like forensic genealogy, cold case groups like the DNA Doe Project, they continue to explore historical cases like this. Sometimes they're trying to identify unidentified remains using new DNA tech or trying to connect new clues using databases and methods unimaginable in 1935.
Could that apply here, even though he was identified?
For the Roland T. Owen case specifically, while the identity is known, the effort to fully understand his story, the full context of his final terrifying days, maybe finding descendants of people involved, that continues. It's fueled by this collective online effort to finally bring some resolution, some understanding, even if legal justice is impossible now.
It's quite powerful, that collective drive.
It really is.
So, here's a final thought for you, for everyone listening. In an age like ours, where digital footprints make true anonymity almost impossible, where our lives are constantly tracked and recorded, every click, every call, every move leaves some kind of digital trace, what does the mystery of Roland T. Owen, this ghost from 1935, tell us?
That's a great question.
What does it tell us about the secrets people can still keep, even when they're seemingly right there in plain sight? And how maybe some threads of truth just remain forever tangled, perhaps never to be fully unraveled, despite all our incredible technological advancements and our deepest desire for answers.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it? That even with all our modern tools, DNA, databases, some human enigmas just persist. They defy logic, they resist explanation, and they refuse to yield their secrets. Some doors stay locked.
A chilling thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the perplexing, heartbreaking, and just utterly baffling Roland T. Owen case. This mystery truly continues to echo through history, doesn't it? Drawing in new generations of curious minds, keeping his story alive.
It certainly does.
We'd absolutely love to hear your own theories, your insights on this fascinating cold case. What do you think happened in room 1046? Head over to our social media channels, find us on Reddit, and join the conversation. Your perspective might just be the one that connects a missing thread nobody else has seen.
Keep the discussion going.
Exactly. Next time on Threads of Truth, we investigate the haunting case of Sneha Phillip, a young woman who vanished on September 10th, 2001 in New York City. Did she perish in the 9/11 attacks, or was her disappearance something far more personal?